Hello and welcome to the Blessings in the Streets podcast. I am your host, Joseph B. Roberts, and in studio with me today is a phenomenal woman that I had the pleasure of making connection with this past year. She is an author, she's a publisher, but most importantly, she's a woman of God, and she's taken time out of her very busy schedule to hang out with us for a little while. To share a bit of her journey with the hopes of inspiring and encouraging and uplifting us all, especially when it comes to dealing with the challenges of adversities that we all kind of deal with in our own special way throughout the course of our lives. So it is my privilege and honor, ladies and gentlemen, to introduce our special guest this evening, Miss Tracey Hill. Tracey, thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, Tracy, before we get started with our segments, I do want to give you an opportunity to share a little bit about yourself, who you are, where you're from, what you do, kind of give our audience a taste of who is Tracy Hill.
Okay. Well, first off, I grew up in a small town, Omaha, Texas. Yes, there is a Omaha, Texas. And if you know anything about East Texas, I grew up in Northeast Texas, going through Gladewater, Gilmer, Mount Pleasant, Pittsburgh, and then you hang all right, going north on Highway 67. Going into 13 miles out of Mount Pleasant is my little town. You bet your eyes you're 4 miles out of there and into the next town. That's how big it is. But I grew up there with my mom, my grandmother. They both raised me, reared me up the best way I can. I grew up without my father in my life, but I'm no worse for wear for it because my grandmother and mother both instilled a lot of high values in me, education, walking and conducting myself as a child of God and as a woman and things. And they didn't have a lot of money, but they had a lot of wisdom and insight, which is what has me where I am today. My mother growing up, she wanted to be a teacher, but she had so many health challenges and things, and during that time there wasn't a lot available to help single mothers who wanted to further their education and get in careers. So what she would do with us, my brother and sister, me and my brother, we were the two oldest. She could draw. I mean, amazing drawing. She would draw like fruits, vegetables, animals, teaching us the letters. What is this animal? We'd say the animal. Okay, what letter does that start with? We'd say to start. So she taught us how to color, how to draw, how to read, how to the basics. We knew how to do things before we actually started school. What she did was take a room in our house and she turned it into a classroom for me and my brother. So when we got started, we had to get up, get ready for school. Okay. You said at that time you could pray in school. Okay. We're first going to say our prayer. We say our morning prayer. Then we said the Pledge of Allegiance. And then she said, okay, this is class. We were playing and goofing around. And she come with a ruler. Back in the day, they could just swatch you. And
Yeah.
you got correct in a hurry. But she taught us how to conduct ourselves in a classroom setting. So when we actually got in school, she said, now I'm gonna tell y'all something. Don't y'all go out there in that school and embarrass me because I will come up there and I will put you in check. And she would. So our mother
Wow.
didn't have to visit on anything disciplinary when it came to us as kids. But I
That's pretty
remember
cool.
those times, yeah, and it's like the teachers were just amazed because I knew how to write cursive in first grade. That's
Mm.
how, how she basically pushed us.
Mm-hmm.
And I look back on it, I said 3Ds, because she did everything, something about D, because her name was Doris. So I think that might have had something to do with it too. My middle name D is actually Andrea. So I'm the only child out of us three that's got a D in the name. And she said one time, this was when I graduated high school and was getting ready to go to college. 3Ds. That's my word for you. And I said, 3Ds. What's 3Ds? Desire, determination, and drive. Whatever
Mm.
desire you have, God will honor that desire. And He will give you the determination to pursue that desire. and he will give you the drive to keep pushing, to keep that desire alive. Those are my 3 Ds that my mom gave me.
Wow.
And looking back on my life, God has blessed me to the right young age of 58. A lot of my classmates didn't make it to that age. My brother, he's been gone 2 years. He died at the age of 57.
Hmm.
But I said, Lord, I thank you because being prior to that, and I'll get in that in the next segment when you talk about a certain life challenge. And I had major challenges with my health,
Okay.
almost to the point of death twice.
Hmm.
The second time, I literally left here and didn't know it, but
Hmm.
God.
But God.
So that
Wow.
and that's another story I'll get into as we go into the podcast. But my upbringing was a simple, humble upbringing. It was just us five. A lot of our family we were considered like, have you ever been in a family or know somebody who's been in a family who is like, you're kind of like outcast from everybody else? I
Mm-hmm.
won't say we're poor. We weren't rich, but we didn't see ourselves as poor because we had everything we needed. We
Mm-hmm.
had a roof over our head. Might not have been the best roof, but it was a roof. 4 walls. We had running water, heat, electricity. We had food. We had clothes. We had everything we needed, and we were happy. And we pulled together when we knew out because as we got older brother, and we were able to work. And he and I got together. He said, Tracy, Mama work a lot and she struggles, because she couldn't work much because of her health. So financially, she did struggle. She was a musician and she made money playing as a musician. She was a child prodigy. She playing for her church at the age of 9. She was definitely gifted and talented in music and taught music, sung, instrumental, you name it. And he said, Mama's second highest bill is the light bill. He said, what I'm going to do is pay the light bill. And the next highest light bill after that was the gas bill. I said, well, I start working. I'll take on the gas bill. We each took on a bill and helped her. It was at a time she was drawing welfare and stuff. And back then, you couldn't get help from anybody. It's a system designed to
Mm-hmm.
keep you in poverty. But we knew how our mother struggled to take care of us. And God laid it on our hearts to try to ease some of that burden. She didn't have to
Mm-hmm.
buy school clothes or school supplies. We bought that. And if it was something we wanted, we could pay for it. And after we paid the bills and everything, then we took our money and did what we wanted to. We put some back for other things. But that was how it was in my home. And when my sister got older, of course, she was the baby. So she pretty well almost had it easy because we had the bulk of responsibility. But even in her life with her sons, because she goes through health challenges, I kind of looked at it as a bad thing. And then I got a little conviction about it because when I really saw the situation, because the youngest son goes through some health challenges and she does too. And the challenges she goes through, she needs them. I said, well, okay, Lord, they're doing what works for them. Sometimes we're on the outside looking in thinking, well, they grow me in, they should do this, they should do that. But like us, they're making sure mama is taken care of.
Mm-hmm.
And I
Wow.
still have that mentality now. I don't have children. I desired children, but who I was married to, he was abusive. And I lost 2 children in that marriage, miscarriage wise.
Mm.
And after that, I was told I'd never have children. But part of this was dealing with my health journey when I got a lot of weight off of me because obesity runs in my family, diabetes, heart disease, high blood pressure. My brother, my mother, and my grandmother, they all died of heart failure.
Mm.
My sister goes through high blood pressure and heart problems. I went through blood pressure problems, but diabetes hit me. And that was my big challenge in
Wow.
everything.
Wow.
But, through all of that, God has blessed me to walk this green earth 58 years. And I thank Him for the rest of the years He's going to bless me to walk this green earth. Because I'm not rushing my time. I know we're going to all leave here one day, but I don't want to leave no sooner than I have to. You know what I mean?
Right, right, right.
So things they didn't know back then, I'm learning now, and I'll get into that as the other parts of the sections go in this episode.
That's great, great. Let me first start off by saying thank you for your transparency, just in the opening of our show this evening. Just
Mhm.
your being transparent and vulnerable, and sharing what life was like for you coming up. I mean, I'm still blown away with your mom. I love the whole concept of her creating the classroom in the home, and and just instilling particularly in you and your brother right out the gate, just preparing you all on the home front before you even entered into the school
Mhm.
itself. So you had school twice, and
Yeah.
but just to have a loving mother to commit to the importance of education, and instilling that into the two of you at such a young age, just making sure that you had a leg up, if you will, to be
Mhm.
ready for life, understanding that life was going to be challenging, that there's going to be filled with adversities and obstacles along the way, and just wanting to make sure that you would have a better chance at it, that you would have
Mhm.
more opportunities available. So that just
Yeah.
speaks to the love and selflessness of your mom, thinking that
Mhm.
much of you. And then it's so beautiful to hear the reverse part of it, where here you and
Mhm.
your brother, seeing the sacrifices that are being made, seeing the struggles that your mom is
Mhm.
going through, and then taking it upon yourself without pressure, without force,
Mhm.
but just again reciprocating that love back by saying,
Yeah.
let's take on a bill, let's handle some things that we can handle on our end, just to make the light, to lighten that load for mom. And I
Mhm.
love that. That is just a beautiful thing in it. And as you were telling your story, just the intro to it all, I'm thinking about, I don't know if you checked out our title for the night for your show.
Mhm.
We can still be thankful, and just
Mhm.
what you shared right offhand speaks all to that title. Just you were just thankful. You acknowledged the fact that, hey, we weren't poor, but we wasn't rich. We didn't have
Mhm.
much, but it was clear that you were thankful. You were grateful for what you did have, so much so that whatever was lacking, you didn't even realize that you didn't have,
Mhm.
because the needs were being met. And that's
Mhm.
kind of old. That's kind of the old school,
Yeah.
the old school way of, for many of us, including myself, when you grow up in that kind of setting where didn't have everything, but we weren't poor, but we weren't rich either. And there were
Mhm.
struggles in between. But when you have a loving family unit that's structured in such a way to where you don't even know, because
Yeah.
because the roof was still over your head, and the food was
Mhm.
still on the table, and the clothes were still on your back, and then of course, most importantly, then you throw the God element into it, the relationship, and understanding his part in it all, orchestrating the whole thing, and you get a whole different level of appreciation for how God can just take the little and make a lot of it, that he can take what seems to be minimal, and maximize it to be enough, and in some cases exceed what you thought you
Mhm.
had.
Yeah.
So it's just a beautiful intro that you've given us there, and taking us through those early stages of your growing up. So I appreciate that, and again, for your transparency and your vulnerability and sharing. That's very beautiful to hear. I'm glad you shared that.
Mhm.
um so Tracy, as you know, I mean, obviously we've talked about some things already, some
Mhm.
challenges early on in life, and the sacrifices and experiences that you have to go through along the way. And as you know, as you get older, you reach off into adulthood. Those challenges don't go away, those experiences
Mhm.
don't go away, and in fact, they begin to level up a little bit. And every now and then, you get hit with some storms in life that are a little bit heavier than the normal day-to-day
Mhm.
nuances that you might encounter, so much so that when you're in those moments, you
Yeah.
might find yourself feeling a sense of like, how am I going to get through this? How am I going to possibly overcome this? There's not enough money to throw at it. There's not a phone call I can make. There's not a favor I can
Yeah.
call in. You spoke about that earlier, about
Mhm.
being in need and not necessarily having people around that were willing to help out or to be there for
Yeah.
you. So, with that said, tell us about a time when you found yourself facing a storm that you didn't, in that moment in time, you didn't see a way out. You didn't know how you were going to overcome it. You didn't know how you were going to make that breakthrough. Obviously, you're here today, thankful
Mhm.
to God that delivered you through it. But maybe at that time, you weren't quite so sure. So, if you would share with us what that experience was like, whatever story you choose to share, what that experience was like, and what was ultimately the turning point where you began to see some light at the end of the tunnel and coming out of that challenging storm.
Okay. Well, it was, I had always worked a job, steady, it was like tangible, I had my money, I paid my tithe, put some, I paid God, then I paid myself, paid my bills, then it had something to enjoy, everything was just a tangible thing. I had managed my money, and I did so. I tried when I was married, but I was married to a man that everything was given to him. He didn't understand the concept of, you know, paying rent versus spending the rent money on a suit.
Mm,
He liked all these high, expensive clothes and things. And that was the one thing that broke us up because I'm working like a dog to help us make it. But he would never work and contribute. He wanted to be the head. He was title head, but he didn't take the responsibility that came with it. And that was on me because I grew up, my mother pretty much sheltered me. Out of the three of us, I was the one, you go pay the bill. You make sure this is done. You make sure that is done. I was basically the responsible child.
mm,
And not only did I resent being the responsible child, my brother and sister resented me being the responsible child. And I didn't ask for that. And I never understood why until one of my late relatives told me. She said, Tracy, because she was telling me, my mom was telling her, in the event I leave here, I want you to make sure my mother's taken care of. She talked about my sister, she talked about my brother, and talk about watch out for them because they'll, because sometimes she's like, how some people, a mother knows her children.
mm. Yes.
She said, Tracy is something they're not, but I love them anyway, but still watch out for them. And she said, okay. And she kept going on and on. And finally, I asked her, well, what did mama ever say about me? She said, I asked her about you. She said, I'm not worried about Tracy. Well, Darcy, that was my mom's name. This relative was telling her, they labeled me as mental retarded because I didn't talk. I think I was like 6 years old when I spoke my first words. And they had me on all kinds of psychiatric evaluation and stuff. And back then, they even recommended sterilization because, they didn't want to breed any more mentally
Mm-hmm.
retarded children, so to speak. So I fought that stigma for a long, long time. But listening to my relative tell me what mama said about me, that really brought a true light to the end of my tunnel because she wasn't a person of words. She would write. I knew she loved me, but I didn't know how she felt about me as her daughter. And when this relative told me, she said, Tracy, she said, I know what people say about my child, but my child is the smartest person in my house. Tracy. She's talking about me. I'm like, she said that about me? And she said, yes. And I wrote about it in my first book as a tribute to her. And she told me, your mother said, Tracy is going to be fine because I already know she's going to exceed the expectations others have of her. They've never had good expectations, but I have. And that right there, out of everything I've gone through in my life, has sustained me and to this day sustains me. That my mother truly expressed how she felt about me, even though I didn't hear it from her lips,
Mm-hmm.
but to know it spoke volumes for me. I didn't have it easy coming up. I was picked on, I was made fun of. And believe it or not, as an adult, I'm still picked on. and made fun of. And I've learned when people do that to you, seeing something in you they wish was in them.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't understand that at the time, when people are basically is jealousy. And experience what I've experienced from jealous people, men, women, regardless of their race. The Bible is true when it says jealousy is crueler than the grave.
Hmm.
And we don't have time in this podcast, but to tell you some of the experiences I've had, not only as a child, but as an adult, professionally, because of the work ethic that was placed in me. I don't do shortcuts. I do everything the way it's supposed to be done. Because I remember my grandmother telling me when I worked, she said, "Baby, your work is your signature." I've
Mm.
never heard that before. She said, "No, a lot of people haven't." But it's true because, when you sign your name, it says something when you sign your name. When you sign your name on the dotted line for something, or people can read your name.
Yes.
She said, when you put your hands to doing something and people see it, that name is lasting. Your work is lasting. I've done so much for businesses and different things. They use my stuff that I created. Try and mask that I created, but they don't use it fully. And the reason why, there's work to what I do. Just
Mm-hmm.
because it looks easy doesn't mean it is easy. Because anything worth doing and maintaining, it involves a lot of work. And I remember my grandmother saying that she said, anything worth having, you're not going to come by it easy. And even if somebody takes it from you, they're going to see that they can't keep it up easy. Just because you set it up doesn't mean it can follow through. And I watched that happen and things. So, in light of those things, I didn't understand it then, but as God graces me to get older in life, I'm understanding it more now because I've been changed out of a job due to that very same thing. But even though I didn't like the way it happened for me to be moved, I'm grateful because I have so peace.
Mm-hmm.
I enjoy what I do. I'm not stressed. And actually, my health is getting even better because it was doing a number on health. And I said, Lord, I don't need anything that's going to jeopardize my health anymore. So even going through those years back of the unemployment, yep, that was kind of because I didn't know what I was going to do. I had no money coming in, but God blessed me to keep a roof over my head. To even taught me how to go to some places to help me with the necessities, with food and different things. And I went to those places. And as I started back making money, I had the money to pay my car note, pay my insurance, pay the things I needed to pay my rent. And then the other places, well, I just go there and, get a few groceries, at some of the pantries. So I learned how to do those things. And not only did I learn how to do it for myself, I taught other people who were going through similar situations. They said, well, I can't get food stamps. I said, you don't have to get food stamps. I said, here's a list. They gave me a list. I shared the list. I said, these places will help you and they'll point you in directions that can help you if you need help with medicine. Because I didn't have medical insurance, and being diabetic, I had to have medical insurance. So they referred me to a program that helped me see doctors, get prescriptions, get my eyes checked, get eyeglasses, even get my teeth done. So I learned that there's a lot of resources out there. So during those hard times, God allowed me to go through those things. I didn't like it, but looking back on it, it helped me to be able to help somebody else who is experiencing the same thing.
Wow.
And
Wow.
the way I'm looking at my life now, with the writing, that was when I did a lot of writing. And that was what brought about the very first book I wrote. I had it written and ready to publish for over 10, 15 years. Just didn't have the means and the know how to do it.
Mm-hmm.
But it talked about some of my personal stuff, some of my health experiences and my challenges in order to help, because I originally wrote it for single people. But I found that there were married people that actually got more than the single people. So when I republished it a second time, I geared it toward it can relate to anybody in any situation in life. I hope what I
Wow.
said made sense.
Oh, it absolutely did. It absolutely did. I mean, you just spoke up some powerful things right here. Again, thanking you for your transparency and your
Mhm,
vulnerability and sharing because um, the transformation that you speak of having gone through, I can totally relate to that. It's like you have this awakening where, yeah, I've had these storms in life, some things that have not gone my way, attacks from all sides, but then there comes this moment of revelation from God, and again, it's due to your relationship with God, where He reveals to you, you know what? I know this doesn't feel comfortable. I know the timing seems to be off, and it's leading to some challenges that you were hoping not to face, but God has a way of taking those storms and blessing you in the midst of those storms. He can take what from a worldly perspective is considered to be a negative event, and he can reveal to you that no, this is actually an opportunity for you to become a better version of yourself, for you to grow, for you to develop, that there's a blessing that is intertwined in the storm that you're in. And so I'm hearing that from you as you share, like how I look at it differently. Like when you use the example about the job, a job
mhm,
that's stressing me out, a job that's taking advantage of my works, and taking credit for things that I know I did, but it's being masked as if I didn't. And in other professional segments, that those type of things are happening. But in the end, they don't even know how to work it. They don't even know how to
mhm,
utilize what they try to take from me because it wasn't for them to have. That's why they don't know what to do with it. That's why they're never going to be blessed by it. They'll be limited in what they can do with what they tried to take from you because God meant that for you to use as a work that's going to be a blessing to you and be a tool for you to be a blessing to other people. And
mhm,
so it's always a fascinating thing, and a beautiful thing. Again, in that relationship with God, when you understand the true meaning of the storms, understanding that that storm can't even come your way unless God gives it permission to. And if He's given
yeah,
it permission to, knowing that He loves you the way that He does, and when you reflect back on the things that you've already shared in life, the storms
mhm,
that you've already gone through, and God made a way in those situations, well, what makes you think He's going to do something any different?
mhm,
Fast forwarding into adulthood, whether it's your health,
yeah,
whether it's overcoming a challenges in marriage, whether it's overcoming challenges in finances, whatever those things are, nothing is too big for Him. And you sharing the way that you have shared is testimony, just testimony
mhm,
to that, and just your thankfulness for what He's
mhm,
delivered you through. I mean, just you saying, what, I've had some health challenges up to nearly to the point of to actually to the point of death, but here I am now walking in my
mhm,
purpose, and I feel health wise I'm better than what I've ever been, because again, because you're doing that which God has aligned for you to do. That's what He's purposed for you to do. And so He's
mhm,
making sure that you have that strength and that endurance and that comforting that you need to have, that peace of mind that you need to have, to where you can be able to do the work. And yes, are there still going to be those attacks that come at you? Sure, there are, but you handle them differently now. Maybe
mhm,
back in the day, you felt some kind of way about it. It hurt your
yeah,
feelings. It brought you down. But now you understand, you know what? Okay, feel like you feel, say what you got to say, but I'm going to
mhm,
still keep moving forward because God's already set the plan up for me to be successful in this. He's already outlined the victory for me. So it doesn't matter what you say to me or about me, whether you say it to my face or whether you say it behind my back, it don't matter because God's got me. And that's why, going back to our title of the show, that's why we can still be thankful, even in the
mhm,
midst of everything that's going on around us. So that beautiful, beautiful sharing of what you did there. I mean, I'm already we halfway through this show, and I'm already blessed, and I know my listeners are blessed by this. You're sharing, and we talked about this before the show started. We kind of got off to
Mhm.
got off to a late start and getting things going. And one of the things you said to me, which is something that I always say, whenever there's some challenges in getting the show off to a fast start, that's a signal that this is a story that's supposed to be told, and the enemy just didn't want you to tell it. He didn't want you to share like you've been sharing tonight, and so we
Yeah.
disappointing him. We letting him down, but that's okay because we don't really care about him being let down about you
Mhm.
sharing your story. So
Yeah.
thank you for sharing as you have so far. So Tracey, you shared some pretty heavy things, some major challenges that you go through, and of course, storms can sometimes be at that level, and then sometimes storms could just be just your daily nuances, lifing type stuff.
Mhm.
But what I'm curious to know from you is when you do find yourself facing moments of adversity, moments of challenge, whether it's something major or if it's just a minor, random things that kind of happen in all of our lives. What is it that you like to do, kind of your routine, your regiment, your process that you like to do that works best for you whenever you find yourself facing challenging times?
Okay. God lets me vent. He lets me cry. He lets me get mad. This, that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And when I'm done,
Mm-hmm.
he said, "Okay. Now, what does my word say?"
Mm.
He takes me back to his word. That you know what? I'm the head and I'm not the tail. I'm above. I'm not beneath. They didn't create you. I created you. I didn't create you to blend in. I created you to stand out. He gave
Mm.
me those things of affirmation to help me because, and like I said, all of my life, pretty much, I've encountered people who wanted to down me and wanted to convince me that I'm basically worthless. But God's word doesn't tell me I'm worthless because I wrote a poem in my first book, You Are. And it goes on, you know about, hey, you are fearfully and you're wonderfully made. I created you. Everything I create is good. And he lets me know there's goodness in me in spite of what anybody has to say about me, what anybody tries to convince anybody else about me. People who see I'm worth getting to know, those are the people I gravitate to. And it's not a lot of them. And a lot of it is because they've taken the time to personally to know me rather than take the opinions of somebody who knows very little, or what they do know they don't like. And because they don't like it, well, misery loves company, that type of thing. But each and every day. And he gave me a hard one this month, a real hard one, because I have, like, with my students at work, the staff, the co-workers, the students, everybody I'm associated with my job. I pray the word of their lives and mine too. My recent job, as I was going over names, he kept giving me this person's name, and I kind of casted it out. I did for about 2 or 3 days, and finally, the fourth time, he says, "My sheep knows my voice; a stranger they will not follow." You know when I'm telling you to do something, and you know what happens when you don't obey my voice. Because if you're willing and obedient, you will eat the good of the land. But if you're disobedient, with many stripes you will be beaten. That was my first brush with death. It was something, a friend of mine, her grandchild, and that child, he has had a major anointing on his life. God has deemed him a prophet. And he showed me some things in the spirit this poor child was going to go through as a child. And I didn't have the heart to tell him. And as a result of me not telling him, I got attacked majorly. It was more than sinus. It had blocked my breathing and everything. I literally could not breathe. And they wondered how did I drive myself to the hospital. I said, truly by the grace of God. Because I had started the new job and everything, and I was struggling to breathe. And I said, I can't be off work. I gotta go to work. And they didn't send me home, but they gave me something to just calm me down and things. And I didn't know I was intubated and stuff. When I woke up, I had tubes and stuff all in my mouth. I said, "What's going on here?" They said, "Lady, passed out on us. Your heart almost stopped on us. And we had to hurry up. You were trying to go home so you can go to your new job. No, honey, you had to stay here so we can get you well. And when I got home, I was still struggling, kind of like I'm doing now. My nose is with the weather and things. I was writing and stuff because God gives me stuff in writing. I have to write it out, what He gives me. Part of those are in my first book, too. And I was writing and writing, and He reminded me of a time when I was a little girl. I was seeing a bumblebee, and I couldn't say pretty. I said pity. Ooh, pity, pity, pity. And before my grandmother stopped me, I grabbed it grabbed it with my hands, and it stung my hand, swelled my hand up and everything. And oh God, I cried. None ending. And my grandmother had this way of making stuff that healed you. She made some type of potus, but whatever it was, stinger just popped out. She didn't have to take tweezers or nothing to pull it out. And it took the swelling out of my hand. And I'm like, what does this have to do with me trying to breathe? And I kept going on, and I got to writing it, and then it started, how when a message is for you, how it hits you like a ton of bricks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
He said, consider this your whooping from me. I told you to deliver a message, and you flat out refused. It reminded me of, I think what it was, Jonah, when he didn't want to go to Nineveh or somewhere to talk to the people. I don't want to talk to them folk. They ain't going to live right no way. Why am I going to waste my time? He got swallowed by a whale and stuff, gave me some examples of people who did not obey him. And he said, do what I told you to do, like I told you to do it, and do it now.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't hesitate, so I got with my friend. I said, when you get a chance, get your grandson to come over here. And it was like a couple of days or so, but she finally got him over, and I got to telling him the message God gave me to give him. That was my first spiritual discipline from God. People look at me and don't really know stuff like this. They think, oh, she's flaky, she's weird. But it's not flakiness or weirdness. God is real.
Mm-hmm.
And when He says something, He says what He means and means what He says. And I've learned that throughout my life. And even with praying the word, like I pray for people now, this particular person, no, I don't want to pray for him. But He said, do it anyway. I know what was done. I know the spirit in which it was done. But do it anyway. Because it's you. And I deal with I deal with those who despitefully misuse you and mistreat you. He said, because he's your enemy, but the spirit that's operating in him is the enemy. And where it says, pray for your enemy. So since he's operating in a spirit that's making him an enemy, that's what God gave me with that. And that's what I do.
Love
Not
that.
easy, but
Yes. Yes.
but that's what I do.
Yeah, and then again, your process is great. I mean, like you said, when you're going through, God, first of all, I like the idea that you embrace letting that out, whatever it is that you're feeling, whether it's the tears, the yelling, the you got to punch something, punch a bag, whatever it is you got to do to get out your system, and people don't always understand that God's okay with us releasing. He understands that in our human condition that we're not going to always grasp, whatever storm is before us, without, showing any emotion. To hold it inside is basically the equivalent of holding poison inside. So you want to release that. You want to have that moment. The key, however, is to not
Yeah.
stay stuck. And you
Yeah.
acknowledge that, God lets me get it out. And then He says, okay, then what does my word say about this? This is how He directs you, because see, now you wouldn't be able to hear Him. You wouldn't be able to hear His guidance, His direction, if you didn't have a chance to clear yourself out, to clear your head, to clear your mind, so that you can receive what He has to say to you. Then He directs you to His word, and then from there you're able to see, okay, this is where what I'm to do in this situation. Whether it be, I need to pray for somebody, I need to forgive somebody, I need to take this action or move this direction. he lets you know. And then I love the other part that you added to this, because this is something that I incorporate in my prayer every day,
Mhm.
is, asking God to, that I want to get one step better each day in
Mhm.
responding to his voice. I want to first know that, recognize it when he's speaking to me, regardless
Mhm.
of the way he chooses to speak to me. But then once I've heard him, that I want to respond in a manner that is expeditious, that it's a right
Mhm.
now response. And and that's regardless of whether or not he's taking the time out to explain to me how he arrived at his decision making and all
Mhm.
that, because the truth is he don't owe me an explanation.
No.
He don't have to explain himself to me. But what I need to do, and you explain that yourself, is I need to receive what he has to say, and I just need to be act in obedience and act in faith and just do it. Trusting that what he's told me is the right thing, because as you and I both know, he makes no
Mhm.
mistakes.
Yeah.
He has the utmost attention to all the details. He's already figured all that out. He don't need our help
Mhm.
for that. He what he needs us to do is to be obedient and operate in faith. Trust what he has to say and just do it.
Mhm.
Even if it doesn't make sense to us, it doesn't have to make sense to us,
Mhm.
because he makes sense. That's what makes it make sense, because he makes sense, because
Yep.
he's perfect. So I appreciate you bringing that up. That's so important. And like I said, the forgiveness piece, because a lot of times many of us struggle with that, especially when people
Mhm.
wrong us, when people do us some kind of way. And the thing that I like to remind people when it comes to that conversation of forgiveness is, the forgiveness is not for them; it's for you. It's going to bless you when you pray for your enemies. That blesses you when when you take the higher road. And and it's hard. I know it's easier said than done, especially when
Mhm.
that's not something that you're used to doing. We're not
Yeah.
minimizing the challenge in it, but it's definitely necessary. And the more you practice that, it gives you a sense of peace, a sense of calm that you've never
Mhm.
felt before. And you'll be able to have the peaceful, calm nights where you're not tossing and turning, or walking around during the course of your day frustrated and
Mhm.
overwhelmed and all stressed out unnecessarily, because you're trying to hold on to this grudge.
Yeah.
Forgiveness doesn't mean that you excuse the behavior.
Yeah.
Somebody did something wrong to you. It's still wrong what they did. Just
Mhm.
because I forgive it doesn't mean I excuse it.
Yeah.
I'm just not gonna let it dominate me. I'm not gonna let it be a priority in my
Mhm.
life, because even to that, when we prioritize stressing and worrying over things,
Mhm.
we're in essence treating it like an idol.
Yeah.
We're putting it before focusing on God, because we're too busy focusing on other stuff that don't matter. So I'm glad you brought that up, because it's so important for us to embrace that understanding of dealing with, how we deal with our adversity, how we deal with our storms. So you've laid it out so eloquently, just in sharing your process of dealing with
Mhm.
challenging times. So again, thank you for sharing that. Um, so Tracy, if you
Mhm.
had the opportunity, when you think back on all the things of life that you've experienced, gone through, good, bad, and everything in between, if you had an opportunity to share with the younger Tracy, to offer her some words of encouragement, some words of wisdom, some things that you wish she would have known early on that you think might have been of help to her.
Yeah.
As when thinking about what you know now, that you wish you
Uh-huh.
would have known then. Um, or just take into consideration that there's going to be somebody that's tuning into our episode that's going through some of the stuff that you've talked about. They're
Mhm.
going through it right now, and they
Yeah.
don't know what to do. They're looking for some ray of hope, some guidance, some direction. What would be those words of wisdom, those words of encouragement that you would have for those listeners, as well as to the younger Tracy? What would you say to her?
Okay. Well, I would say to the younger me, especially in the area of men, because I didn't have a lot of experience. So I married the first man I met. The first man I met, fell in love with. Didn't know any. I had nothing to compare it to. And I know my mother and grandmother meant well, but in a sense, I think it kind of handicapped me because not having my father in my life to, hey, point out to, this is the man you need to avoid. If a woman, if a young girl, if the young me, like I didn't have my father in my life, any young girl I tell, see, I would let him know, hey, if you have a father, sometimes some of these young girls, I don't know why my daddy don't like him. I don't know why my daddy won't do this, my daddy won't do that. I would have relished that because for a father to care that much about his daughter,
Mm,
to be careful as to whose life he puts her hands in. That speaks volumes because the father, I wrote that also in my first book, men know men, women know women. And men know the type of man, when he meets that guy she's dating, he can tell right off, he's not the one. He's a user,
Mhm.
he's an abuser, he's a womanizer, different things about his character because he wants his daughter to be with someone who's going to do, if not as much as her father does for her, at least half of what her father does for her. If he's going to take her out on a date, he should be able to pay for dinner and a movie. She shouldn't have to pay half. She shouldn't have to pay on anything. I had uncles in my life who helped me with what they could help me with. And my late uncle told me, you know, if you how you start with a man is how you finish with them, or basically continue with them if you continue with them. If every time y'all go out and he's short on money, oh, don't worry, I got it. Every time you go out, you're going to be picking up the tab. And if he starts hitting you up for money, it may be $50, $100 here or there. You look around, he's going to be asking you for more money and bigger amounts. So he says those type of things. If he's got to depend on you for little stuff like that, you don't need him because he can't do for himself. You need a man to do something for himself so he can do something for you. So that was a lesson I learned dealing with men and also recognizing when a man sees me, and depending on the time he wants to see me. Now, if we're out daylight in public, eating at a restaurant, fine and good. But if you want to see me after dark, wee hours of the night, then that's telling me you don't really think a lot of me to want to be seen with me publicly. You want to be with me, but you don't want to be with me publicly. I learned that lesson too. Because I care enough about myself. If I mean anything to you, hey, you at least like, hey, this is my lady friend. This is Tracy. This, she's that, and everything. You'd want to show me off, show me to your friends. And whatever they got to say about me negatively, if you think anything of me, it's not going to go, it's going to go one way and not the other because you've taken the time to get to know me. And I'm
Mhm.
that way with the gentleman I'm with. That I'm like, I don't mind being with you, but I've had guys say, why are you with me? I said, well, you asked me to go out. I figured, why not? Give you a chance. And I've had some say, judging me by how other men treat. I said, no, I based my decision about you on your actions, not the actions of somebody from my past. So that's something I would tell my younger self, you know, to be, just to be more cautious and be more definitely God directed because that's why I've been by myself so long. I said, okay, God, if you can't pick him for me, then there's nobody for me. But I don't want to say just yet. I'm just gonna see how things go.
Right.
But something different has happened in my life, and I just want to, see where it goes. But so far, so good.
Mhm.
But I just now that I under to have a relationship with God. There was a gentleman, he kind of got myth with me because he's saying he's saved and everything, but he was asking me certain questions. And I told him, I said, number one, it's getting late. Number two, as a single woman, there are certain conversations we don't need to be having. Even if I was engaged to you, we still shouldn't have these type of conversations, you know. And he got to talking about, well, when God gives you something, you got to make a move on it here and there. Another thing I would warn young ladies about is watch out for a man who's trying to take God's word to twist it to what he wants to get from you.
Mhm.
Because I got to telling him the word and the scripture as to what God's word says about relationships and about, hey, how can two walk together unless they agree? We're already out of agreement. because I agree with God says live, and you agree differently. And I've been intimate with God for years. And I put that in a statement in my first book. I guess you're saying you referring to this first book a lot. I say, yeah, because it was something that he gave me for men
Mm-hmm.
and everything. And how Jesus, was toward women. Women literally followed him until the day he died, literally, because he had such a compassion for them. And I even said, hey, he awakened an arousal in them that it surpassed any sexual experience she could have, because that's an intimacy. It's so personal you can't really describe it, but when you're walking with God and you're letting him guide your steps, it's totally different. And it truly will take a man who's walking with God in the same manner to understand that. So it's been a lot of years for me in that department, but I chose to let God lead me in that area. Said, I'm not perfect. I know he's not going to be perfect, but God help make me who and what I need to be for the person you have for me. That's some advice I would give. Don't be in a hurry. Don't be, well, if you do this, you love me. No, he doesn't, because you can't love somebody you don't even respect. And even if he respects you, he wouldn't be trying to push you, to do things.
Yeah.
So when I let the man know what for, and I said, you know what, let's just go our separate ways, because we're already out of agreement. And to save you the trouble of rejecting me, I'm rejecting everything, because this isn't
Mm.
where I want to start a relationship. I want to start it out the way God has it designed to be started. I
Love
understand
that.
that now, where I didn't understand that years ago.
Very well said. Very well said.
Yeah.
What I'm hearing from you in
Hmm.
what you just shared here, if we could sum it up, would be you're telling people who, when it comes to your challenges and adversities of life, there has to be a love of self. You have to know what your worth is.
Hmm.
I think that's a big component when we talk about overcoming challenges and adversities. Is know your value. Know who you belong to.
Hmm.
That you are a child of God, and that there's a certain level of excellence that comes with you. There's a certain level of standard that comes with you. So that knowing that in itself is key in you dealing with the adversities and challenges of life. Is just knowing who you are, who you belong to, your worth, your value. So I'm glad, even though this was your personal testament, as you went into specifically about relationships with men and such. It to that the deeper meaning to all of that is knowing your worth,
Hmm.
knowing who you are. If you're in a relationship with God and you know the intimacy, that relationship, that unconditional love that He has for you, that in itself should speak volumes to you, and letting you know that there's nothing too big that you can give Him, that He can't be there for you. And He's going to be there for you in a manner that you, as you stated, is it's going to be decent. It's going to be in order. It's going to be with
Hmm.
compassion, with an empathetic spirit, with an understanding spirit. It's,
Hmm.
it's going to be it's going to be completely different. See, a lot of times we get our challenges and adversities distorted because we're either trying to do it on our own, or we're trying to, as you shared in your sharing just in your story right there, where or we try to twist God's view of it, and we try to apply our own set of rules to the situation and things like that. There's an order to it all. There's a
Yeah.
there's a way. And it's really only two ways you can go: His
Yeah.
way,
All
or the
your
wrong
way.
way.
Uh-huh.
you know, and my experience, and I'm sure you could say the same about my experiences in life, regardless of the adversity, regardless of the challenge, is when I did it God's way, it always worked out. When I
Hmm.
did it my way, without His guidance, without His direction, I messed something up, or I
Yeah.
made the situation last way longer than it had to. I did something to
Yeah.
throw it off track when it didn't even
Uh-huh.
have to be that hard. I made it harder than what it had to
Yeah.
be because I was trying to do it on my own, or trying to make up my own rules that suited me, that fit my comfort zone, that fit my way. And that's
Hmm.
that's that's not the way to, and again, you have to, sometimes you got to bump your head a little bit from time to
Oh
time before you
yeah.
figure it out. And that's okay. He understands we're going to make mistakes, and every now and then we're
Hmm.
going to make that bad judgment. That
Yeah.
doesn't condemn you. That doesn't write you off. the key is to learn from it and seek the proper way to do it with the hopes that the next time you encounter a similar situation, this time
Mhm.
you get it right. And so, I appreciate your approach and sharing the angle that you brought it in, because that's what it's all about. I mean, that's the essence. If you want to know
Mhm.
how to overcome adversities, anybody that's tuning in and you feel stuck in whatever situation, start there. Know your
Mhm.
worth. Know who you belong to. What the meaning of that relationship? Are you trying to deal with adversities on your own, or are you trying to depend on him to do it? Which way are you
Yeah.
going with this? That's gonna give you all you need to know on how that thing is gonna play out.
Yeah.
You don't have to know what the answer is.
Yeah.
God knows. You just have to trust and rely upon him to guide your steps accordingly and make that way for you and trust in it. And when you get to see those victories start to pile up, those testimonies begin to pile up, then you start, okay. That's when you be like saying to yourself, you had those moments like, why did I wait this long to start
Uh-huh.
doing it this way? I
You
done
kind of want to slap
all the
yourself, pull yourself
right,
together.
put myself together.
What's wrong with
All
you?
this trouble and anguish and stress I done brought on myself, trying to be
Uh-huh.
trying to put be Superman or be Superwoman,
Uh-huh.
trying to put on the cape and save the day.
Yeah.
No, or trying to rewrite the script that's already
Uh-huh.
been written. No, you got to do it his way.
Mhm.
So I do again appreciate your angle in sharing that, even the way that you did, because it hit home. It's this is what it all boils down to. So I pray that my listeners are embracing that, and I'm embracing it as well. Just reinforcement to what things that God speaks to me on about how
Yeah.
to deal with these moments. So thank you for sharing that.
You're
Um,
welcome. And can I
yeah.
say something in the
Oh,
lines of
absolutely.
healing? Also, I don't want to prolong the time,
No, you're good.
but as I said, my family long history, but God can change our history. Dealing with the health situations in my, that's been passed down. Basically, you know, uh, His word says that my people perish for the lack of knowledge. During the time of medicine, when my grandmother and mother were living, everything the doctors said was gold. They never questioned, even when it didn't work. They never questioned it. And God reminded me of something one day. This was when I had the second death experience. Before I had it, I was going to the doctor back and forth, could not get my blood sugar under control. It was running 300 plus. It's by God's grace. I'm even in my right mind that it was running that high. And I did what they told me to do, and the stuff worked a while, and it just wouldn't work no more. And I went to my pharmacist one day to pick up a prescription. And she said, "Oh, yeah, others are in too." I was taking over 20 something meds a day. And then when I went to pick up the prescription and then the others that came in for refill, she said, "Oh, she's got 5 more prescriptions she wants you to take." I found myself doing what my mom did. I walked out of that pharmacy and I left everything, even the stuff I've been taking. "Ma'am, you're diabetic. You can't do this." And I remember a time when my mother, the doctor gave her, she had like a big trash bag of medicine. And she was like, on me. And we said, "Okay, Mom, it's time to take your medicine." And the trash truck was pulling up. She said, "Is that the garbage man?" I said, "Yeah, that's him. Hold on 1 minute." She told him to wait up. And we didn't know what she was doing. She got that big bag of medicine. She could hardly walk. She was on so much because it had her that out of it. She took her time. It took her a bit, but she got to that trash truck. She said, "I got 1 more bag of trash for you." And before we could stop her, she threw it up on the trash truck. And we like, "Mama," we were crying today, "Mama, you don't know what you did." I know exactly what I did. My life is in God's hands. 3 days after she did that, totally different woman. She was over medicated.
Mm-hmm.
And that day when I pharmacist told me, "Miss Hill, you do this, you're not gonna see the light of day too long." And I turned around and told her the exact words my mama said to us. My life is in God's hands.
Hmm.
I didn't eat or drink anything. I drank a little water, but it was like fire going down my throat. I just couldn't eat. And the third day, I was so weak, my body felt like lead. And I had to call an ambulance for myself because I said, I can't drive. They came in, I left my door open so they could come in, and they helped me out of my apartment and got me in the ambulance. My blood sugar was like 250, and I'm like, well, that's high. It's high, but it's not. But you know the way I was reacting, and they were thinking it was like 500, 600, and they admitted me and stuff. And then they told me I was ketoacidosis. That's when your blood sugar is so high, your blood is literally acidic.
Mm.
And this woman, I don't know who she was. She was a nurse practitioner. I will never forget her face. But you talk about, you remember in the Bible, Jesus, when he said, "I'll doubt belief, you don't believe, get out of the room." She ran doctors, nurses, everybody out of my room. He was talking about, this is what's wrong with you doing holistic crap. You sick as a dog and you about to die. We don't have to put you on. And I mean, he just went off on me. And she told him, get out of the room. She said, do you know who I am? She said, no, but I'm going to tell you who I am. I am
Hmm.
here to help this lady. She ran him out. Said, they looked at her like she talking to a doctor like that. She said, yeah, I know you're a doctor, but you out, and I'm telling you to get out. I remember all of that. I'm like, oh my God. And this woman come back in my room to give me sedatives and stuff. She don't need it. Take it away. And she come with me. I didn't know this woman was a intercessor. She said, you're in for a long night, but God is going to get you through. She said, she explained to me the insulin drip, and it terrified me because she said if they don't regulate it right, they can put much in your body too fast, and it can cause you to go in there and rest. But she said, but calm down. She set everything up and told them how to run it. Later on in the wee hours of that morning, I felt a tightening in my chest. I was struggling to breathe. I didn't know what was, I was kind of in and out of consciousness. And I remembered seeing her. She was rubbing my face. I didn't know what she was doing. She had opened my mouth. She said, you're all right. You're all right. And I could barely breathe. And like I said, my chest was tightening up. And before I blacked out totally, she said, God's got you. Later on, it was like, she said this happened about 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. I came to about like 4 o'clock that afternoon. And she asked what I remember. And I told her, I vaguely remember you rubbing my face and my neck and you telling me God's got me, and I blacked out. She said, you didn't black out. Your heart stopped.
Hmm.
What happened was what I told you. If they didn't monitor you, what happened? They set the drip after she had set it too fast. And too much insulin went in my body and it stopped my heart. But he said what she did, she was in there to see another patient. She put she had nitroglycerin for the other patient. She gave it to me. She put it on my tongue. And that's what stayed the heart attack. That's why I'm here today.
Wow.
I didn't see that lady anymore, but she said, my prayer for you, because she said for you as that was happening, and she had her intercessors. She had them on a text, and then whenever she's working in the hospitals with people, she got them in agreement to pray on my behalf. And she said, I pray God put you on the path of finding a doctor who will treat the root cause, find it, and treat you based on the root cause and not the symptoms. Because this facility will kill you, and it almost did.
Hmm.
And that gave me the different mindset. There's too much medical technology out there to keep doing, business the old way, as folk used to say.
Yeah.
Because there are different ways of treating people. I've encountered too many treatments. My own pastor was a diabetic. Doesn't take a shot, doesn't take a pill. And I know if God could do that for him, What more can he do for me? And he and his wife sent me to their doctor. I've been under this doctor for 5 years. He gets some more weight off of me. I was on one med, but then it started not working anymore, and it almost shut my body down. And I come dangerously close to going into renal failure. That's how bad it almost shut my body down. But God,
Yeah.
and He put me on something else. My body is doing better with it. The weight is not coming off drastically, but it's helping me maintain my weight. And now that I'm at a job where I can get to walking in, because I'm walking from one school to another school 4 or 5 times or more a day, counting my steps. I didn't realize my phone was counting my steps. I'm getting in over 8,000 steps a day. I'm like, okay. I said, okay, this is what I'm doing. Change what I eat. I don't eat like I used to eat, and it's made a big difference. And I would tell anybody going through health, don't be afraid to seek out another opinion because it's your life. Just because that's how they know how to treat it doesn't mean that that's the way for you. The
Hmm.
doctor I'm under, he ran tests on me and found out why I can do insulin long term. He said because I'm insulin resistant, my body produces it. It just doesn't channel the way it's supposed to channel in my body. But he treated me based on that, and that's why I've been successful. And I want people to know there are doctors out there. It's just a matter of researching, find advocate for yourself. I had to advocate for myself. It meant going as radical as going against medical advice. And I figured they were going to kick me out the hospital because I wouldn't do what they say. But what they were telling me to do was on the verge of taking me out of here. But again, God,
Yep. Wow. Wow. Um,
yeah,
Again, another testimony to what a relationship with God will do for you, because He'll bring people in your life, the unexpected individuals, in this case, an intercessory individual that you didn't know her. She didn't owe you anything to be present in that moment, but God positioned her to be there, to be praying for you, to come alongside you, to give you that insight that you needed, so that you could make the proper decision in seeking a different, medical outlet for somebody who was going to be more attentive to to the root of your problems, and those
yeah,
and the things of that nature, so that way your health could be on a path for improvement versus, as you stated, which is very true, because I saw my mother go through it, grandmother, same thing, the whole over medication thing,
mm-hmm.
the whole, just doing too much, to where you got meds to keep you up, you got meds that make you
Just
sleepy, you
lay
got
it
meds
down.
that make you
Mm-hmm.
hungry, that make the meds that stabilize your appetite. They're all counteracted, and you're spending all this
Yeah.
money, and you're just loading yourself up with all of this stuff. And that's not, we're not saying that all doctors are bad or anything like that, but some, like
Mm-hmm.
you said, are just, you feel like they're doing more experimenting on you than they are trying to actually resolve the problem.
Yeah.
And so, again, thanks be to God that, through that relationship, he can send angels your way. You said that
And
woman,
he's
you only
got me
you
off of, yeah.
mhm. Yeah, you
He's
only
got me
experienced
off
that
of
woman
more
for a
medicine.
season.
Hmm.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was just saying he's got me off of more medicine over 2 years ago. I was at work thinking my blood sugar was through the roof. Shit. Your blood sugar is fine because I had eaten breakfast and lunch. My blood pressure almost bottomed out. I was taking blood
Mm,
pressure medicine. It was low dose, but he kept me on the blood because of the incident with the insulin overload, and he didn't want me having another heart attack.
yes.
But when they got me there, and because of my blood pressure going low and stuff, I was like, I just go home. I feel fine. She said, honey, you may not live because my pulse op was like 60. And she said, that's not good. That's getting dangerous. It was getting dangerously low. She said, we got to get you to a hospital. The assistant principal drove me to the hospital. And they checked me in. They said, and you are, I said, how my ketoacidosis and my blood sugar ain't even 200. And I think with my body, because going through treat me differently, it started my body not having to need medicines it was needing before.
Hmm.
I was taking, like I said, 20 plus meds a day. I take supplements and I take maybe 2 or 3 prescribed meds and working come off of some more. And I'm mostly pushing the natural, the holistic, to try and do it naturally to where I don't have to keep taking all this medicine. So I know God has done a major work in my life, especially with my health. There was
Absolutely.
too many occasions I could not be here.
Hmm. And he's doing that major work in you because he has major works for you still to do. So he got to get you right. He got to get you. He got to get you
Yeah,
with that strength and endurance, so you'll be able to do the works that he has for you to do. To keep doing that writing, to keep doing that speaking, to keep doing that publishing, and maybe a few things that he hasn't even revealed to you yet. So he ain't done with you yet. Because if he was done
yeah,
with you, then he wouldn't keep revealing these things to you. He wouldn't keep coming alongside you. And just, and of course we add in the fact that he just unconditionally loves you. And this is
yeah,
just what comes with that unconditional love. This is what comes with that intimacy and relationship, that God has your back. He has your back even when we don't have our own backs. He has it. He
yeah.
has our backs for us. So I thank you so much, as you've shared the way that you have, blessing us throughout the course of this evening. Again, I know I've been blessed. My listeners been blessed. Powerful story, powerful testimonies. Definitely some gems, some nuggets that we can apply right away to our respective situations, and having a better approach, a better perspective in dealing with the adversities and challenges of life. But Tracy. But before I let you go for this evening, it's
Mhm.
customary here at the Blessings in the Streets podcast that we take an opportunity to celebrate you, to love on you, to acknowledge you. So if you do have anything personally and or professionally that's going on or coming up down the road, please share that with us so we can not only be informed about it, but know how to be a part of it, support it, keep in touch with you and check in on you. And if nothing more, just lift you up in prayer that God has favor over everything that you're doing. So what do we have to look forward to from Tracy that you got going on that we need to know about?
Well, a second book. This time it's a children's book. And I have my Spanish copy. It just came today.
Awesome. Awesome.
It is El Mundo es un oasis. In English, the world is a rainbow. And it's a fiction story, but it's about a true experience I've had in the system for education for over 15 years, working with various types of children with different types of learning disabilities, mental, emotional, and even some in the general education setting that are identified. They have struggles with reading and writing and different things. And I worked with some phenomenal teachers over the years. They took a different approach. It's like with the health I was telling you about, you have to do that with education too. And my philosophy is I take what a child likes and I use that as a tool to teach them. If they like race cars, I said, okay, let's set up a math problem involving race cars.
Mm-hmm.
Or if they're a weather buff, I had a child one time I worked with, and he looked at a tornado and we were doing place values. He said, that number reminds me of a tornado. And I asked the teacher, could he go up and, demonstrate on the board? She said, yeah, show me how this number reminds you of a tornado. He said, there in the sky, the tail, you see the little tail of it. But then, as it comes down, that tail gets smaller and smaller. But as it's up, you see those big clouds around it, bigger
Mm-hmm.
number. So that's the hundreds place. That's the thousands place. That's the 10,000s. And he just went on.
Okay.
He literally broke it down, and it's like, yeah, and she gave him an A for that analogy. So there are things. I learned quirky myself. And when it came to getting this book done, like I said, no opposition, but the English version will be ready, just like the Spanish version. And it's going to be hardback, paperback, and I'm going to have them in ebook. And my surprise with this book, I'm not going to reveal too much of it, but there's another language I know, and I'm researching how to get it in print in that language to reach another another area of children.
That's
So part of
beautiful.
my goal is working with children and building a nonprofit working with children named in honor of my mother and my grandmother. And also what I write, I'm mostly a nonfiction writer because my first book that I published, and it's still out, From the Heart of the Father to My Sons and Daughters. The second edition of it is out. This edition is no longer available, but it can be bought on Amazon and Barnes and Noble's websites, both the ebook and the paperback on Barnes and Nobles, but just the paperback on Amazon
All right.
and
That is
everything.
beautiful.
So if you want to read something about a little bit inside of my life, my experiences, my stories, the first book is one to read, and I've gotten some great success from it, and I'm looking forward to the success that's coming with the children's book. I've already gotten some rave reviews, and it's not even out yet.
Mm. That's just how God moves. He's already setting up the platform for you to be blessing, to be a blessing, and to be blessed in the works that you're doing. So, Tracy, if people want to continue to follow you, to check out your works or any engagements you have coming up or anything like that, what's the best way for them to do so, to keep up with you, to follow you?
Well, I have a Facebook page and I have an Instagram page. It's Tracy's underscore publishing. I can be followed on Facebook and Instagram. And as soon as I get everything with this second book, I'm having a trailer made. I'm gonna have that uploaded on Facebook for everybody to see. And it'll have information on where to buy the link to buy the book from Amazon. It's gonna be published in Amazon, Barnes and Nobles. I'm even learning with this new company how to get it in some global markets. Since it's in Spanish, get it out in the UK, as far Africa, China, Canada, different countries,
That is
because that's
beautiful.
part of my goal. And what I do for myself as an author, people who want me to publish them, I can do that for them as a publisher also.
Great, great, great stuff. Tracy, this has been a wonderful time with you. Thank you for being a guest on the show. To my listeners, she's giving you her contact information. Please support. Please check her out. If you need some publishing work done, check her out. She's an all around professional, and again, just as you can see, a powerful testimony, a walking, living testimony of how God's favor is on her life. And I pray nothing more but additional favors that it continues to follow you in everything that you do, everything that you touch, that He's with you every step of the way, because you're doing some beautiful work, and I'm expecting to see more and more of it. So, congratulations to you, your successes both now and that are to come. We're just going to go ahead and claim those victories in advance right now for you. So, definitely
Yes.
appreciate you being on board. And to my listeners, if you've enjoyed our podcast this evening, you enjoy what we're doing here, please subscribe, please share, please like, please comment, because this is what the Blessings in the Streets podcast is all about. We want to inspire, we want to encourage, we want to uplift. We take very personal stories that are going on in our respective lives, being transparent and vulnerable and opening ourselves up to you with the hopes of being able to, again, encourage and inspire, hoping that maybe there'll be something that you draw from these personal testimonies that you can apply to your life to help you deal and process through your moments of adversity and challenges, because we all are facing something. You're not alone in that regard. But most importantly, the takeaway that you want to have is that it all begins with a relationship with God. You have to include Him in this, in every aspect of your life. If you want to be able to overcome the more difficult times of life, He is definitely open His arms lovingly, wanting nothing more but to have that intimacy, have that relationship with you. And if you don't currently have a relationship with God, today is a mighty fine day to make that happen. It'll be the best decision that you ever make. So with that said, remember, here at the Blessings in the Streets podcast, this is the place where your story is your glory, where your relationships are relevant, and your journey is your joy. I am your host, Joseph B. Roberts. I thank you so much for tuning in. And until next time, you keep fighting that good fight. Learn to build that relationship with God. Embrace it. He wants it. He wants nothing but the best for you. He loves you unconditionally. He is the ultimate way maker, promise keeper. He can move mountains for you. There's nothing too big for him. Rely upon him, and I promise you, your whole outlook on storms, your whole outlook on dealing with adversities and challenges will be totally changed in a beautiful way. And you too can be a blessing to other people in your walk, in your talk, in your testimonies of life, and to be able to pour into the lives of others, as well as fill your life with blessings coming from the one and only God Himself, who again wants nothing but the best for us. And so until next time, you take care of yourselves, and I look forward to seeing you at our next episode. Until then, have a great rest of your evening.
Okay. Good night, everybody, and thank you for having me on your show.
Absolutely.